see. Let me get that mute button going. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Into the Garbage Chute, the Star Wars show that isn't afraid to deep dive and get a little dirty as we dissect and reassemble a galaxy far, far away. But don't worry, because we're not doing this alone. We have a very colorful cast of characters joining us, as always, and they're going to help us navigate the sometimes murky waters of the Star Wars universe. Let's get everybody in here tonight and see who we've got. We've got a full house this evening. Let's see. Let's go around and we'll talk to this guy first. Hailing from the Outer Rim territory of Boston, it's the man, the myth, the legend, Daddy Louie.
Hello, children.
How are ya?
Eyes good. I don't know.
There's something that just feels inappropriate about what you just said, but that's okay. We'll we'll let it slide. And coming hot on the heels of his highly critically acclaimed show at Kane Theater. You didn't know where I was going with that, did you?
I did not. No idea.
That's okay. But School of Rock, speaking of the man, the myth, the legend, the rock god himself, Quailman, what's up?
Not much, man. First night off in 4, so just taking a little break to be with y'all here and not on stage.
We
get a
appreciate
couple more
you.
nights off, so that's nice.
How's the show going?
It's going great. We've had great houses. People are loving it. Got 4 more chances to see it, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we will definitely pimp that out. I had an opportunity to see it a couple of days ago. Damn. When I was buying tickets for it, the layout online was a little bit different, so I don't know what happened between then and when I actually went. So I was expecting to be sitting a few rows back. I wasn't expecting to be right there. So it was just right there. It was just that's Doug. He's 8 feet tall in front of me. Oh my God.
Caught a lot of my sweat that night.
Not just sweat. Not just sweat, but I was happy. I was happy to receive all of your fluids.
Sorry.
Yeah, we did it. We made it.
I think it was at that show too. Yeah.
It was a great show. And for those of you that haven't seen it yet, definitely go to, canepark.com.
That's the one.
You can get your tickets there. Doug, as great and amazing as you are in the show, the kids, good Googa Mooga, the kids.
I'm fancy bouncy set dressing. The kids are the show. They're really fantastic. I just bounce around.
Unbelievable. And they were legit for real playing those instruments.
Yep. Every one of them.
Insane. It was a great show. I absolutely love it. Aaron and Ventious, you guys went as well. We're just going to gush on Doug for a minute. I hope you don't mind.
Fine.
Your thoughts on School of Rock, starring our very own D to the UG.
From the very beginning, I had a smile on my face the entire time because the show is just so much fun. There's so much heart in it. It's impossible not to have a good time and just be so impressed with. I mean, it's hard enough to put together a pit orchestra of talented adults playing instruments, but to have 4 kids, I'm guessing all of them under the age of 13, playing live without sheet music on stage and probably in a band format for one of the first times. Oh my God. And Doug was there. And Doug also did a great job.
Everyone was crushing it. Just 1,000%. So Vengeance and Aaron.
Yes.
How's it going? Welcome to the show.
Oh, hi.
I think what was also fun about the show is you could watch the kids go through puberty between Act 1 and Act 2. You may start the show and if you want to be the teacher's pet, and at Act 2, baby, you just better forget it. They're just at that age, man.
It was so cool. Stick it to the man. That was my favorite number. That was just so high energy. Just stick it to the man. Oh, such a good show. Anyway, let's get on with our show. Hey, we've got some folks in the chat. We've got World Gone Geek, Sup Nerds, Dewey Finn for the win. Absolutely. Look at, see, stick it to the man. Yeah, World Gone Geek was there as well. I think,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Jeff showed up as well. David Carter smiling from start to finish. It is official. Doug, your show's a hit.
My head's not going to fit on this screen if you guys keep going. So
Okay.
Star Wars.
You know what? It is well deserved, my friend. It is well deserved. I know you guys put in a lot of hard work to make this thing a reality. So well done. Well done.
I appreciate it. You guys are awesome. Thanks for coming out, and I hope.
I have applause. Oh, sorry, that was way too loud. I was like, hey there, ho there. All right, let's get back to the show and do the thing that we doing. Hey, so before we get started, of course, we're going to be talking about Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi, Episode 5. Almost forgot where I was and what I was talking about in a day. So talking about Episode 5, and if you haven't seen it yet, warning, there are spoiler alerts. So if you aren't interested in spoilers, then please just kind of move along. Nothing to see here. So tonight we're going to be flashing back, picking up some clues in Arabesh. We look at the wisdom of Vader and some alien physiology, if you have the stomach for it.
Yes!
It's like, there it is. Okay.
There it is.
Plus, we're going to have our ratings, predictions, and much, much more. But first, D to the UG, let's recap this thing, shall we?
I have notes. So we're going to recap. First off, as you'll remember where we ended part 4, there was a tracker left with the ship by Reva, and that tracker was Lola, that little bot of Leia's. So we kind of opened the episode with an awesome, we finally got a flashback, not Clone Wars, which is okay. We got some pre-Attack of the Clone flashback, Obi and Anakin sparring, which is a pretty awesome parallel for the episode altogether, and it kind of weaves in and out throughout, but this is what I'll mention of it because we're going to talk a little bit more about it later. There's a lot that happens within that about particularly Anakin needing to prove himself, and we kind of see Vader's progression throughout the entire series. Lola is sabotaged. Now we're back in present day on Jabeam, and Lola has flown into and closed the big hangar gate thing, stopping the refugees from fleeing Jabeam and the Reva and then the troopers that are on their trail. So Leia volunteers to fix it, and in like one of the most heartwarming moments, Obi-Wan's like, yeah, let her do it. I trust her. You trust me. Let's go. So Leia climbs in there, and she's all trying to fix this thing and open it up so they can run away. And all that while Reva and her troopers, purge troopers, stormtroopers, are trying to bust down this big fortified door, and Obi-Wan decides to stall, and he's like, no. Look, Reva, I know there's some stuff going on here, and we find out a whole lot about Reva's backstory and her true intentions, which is really fun. She was the Padawan at the beginning opening sequence, one of the Padawans, and she survived, and this thought of revenge on Vader and Obi-Wan together kind of fueled her and her path through Fortress Inquisitorius, etc. Obi-Wan learns. Then they break through. She's finally frustrated. She's done. And we get a super sad sacrifice of not only Tala, who I think was a pretty spectacular character through 2 episodes. Absolutely. They really made me care about her. But then our boy Ned goes down. Ends with some stormtroopers. And he shields Tala in her last moment so that she can detonate and drop a May the Force be with you. Ned is the real hero, I think, of the entire series. Let's just pour one out for our boy Ned.
It's the Ned B show.
Finally, Vader arrives. He's like, I'm going to fucking do this. And he's throwing doors open with the Force like we all did walking into Giant Eagle earlier today. And as the ship takes off, he grabs it. And this is a super cool moment for me because I remember like Ahsoka trying to grab Maul's ship in the final arc of the Clone Wars, and we've seen people try to manipulate these ships in the air. Rey does it in is it Rise of Skywalker, and accidentally force lightnings it and blows it up. We all think Chewie died, but Vader's like, not a thing, bro. Got it. Zoom, pulls it down,
one-handed,
rips it to shreds. But he got duped because he's trying to prove himself. And he's not being patient. So once again, Obi-Wan wins for now. Although we do find out that they don't have light light speed ability, hyperdrive on their ship, so that's not great. That sets up the next episode. And meanwhile, Reva finally tries to seize her opportunity. I think she waited a little too long, for being honest. Vader was pretty well distracted while he was pulling down the ship. But anyways, Reva turns. Reva fails. Reva fails hard. Vader toys with her. He's like, "Come at me," and she literally cannot. He forces her not to with the Force. And then she gets all stabbed, and we get this really cool like flash of the image of her being stabbed at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant as a Padawan, which is really neat. And then we have the reveal that the Grand Inquisitor is indeed not dead and is back. And he says like some really sassy line. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was definitely chock full of sass, and I kind of liked him more. And then Reva's not dead. They left her to die, but she didn't die. We got to learn, just finish it. Like, it's the zombie land, just double tap, just right now. Reva's alive, and she finds the broken beacon of Obi-Wan with a transmission from Bail about how he's nervous that they're not home yet, and he's going to have to go to Tatooine to help Owen with the boy.
Bum, bum, bum.
Kills it. And he's like, oh, shit, bad things are about to happen. And then he's like, no, I'm just kidding. Keep running because I don't want to scare the child. And that's the end of the episode. So you're welcome.
Hey, one question for you, Doug. When you said about young Reva getting stabbed, you said that was neat. That's that you find it neat that younglings are getting.
It was a very creative cinematographic cinema. It was cool looking.
Yes. Good.
I'm not happy Reva got stabbed.
Okay.
Or any younglings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify. And I think that sassy thing that he said was, he was like, perhaps you just don't have the stomach for this sort of thing. He didn't say that, but it was a missed opportunity. It was a missed opportunity. All right, Doug, thank you for getting us caught up. For anyone that didn't see it, now you've basically seen it, so don't complain about spoilers later on in the show. So what we're going to do now is we've got a lot coming up. Louis is going to be taking us through space madness, so he's going to have some stuff about that. But before we dive into the madness that is the hyperspace lanes, let's go ahead and get these ratings. I'm curious to see what everyone thought of this week, and we're just going to start with Louis just to get it out of the way.
Wait, why are you starting with me?
just because. Let me
rip the Band-Aid off, Louis.
Yeah, we're just going to start with you, buddy. Because usually it's like, well, it started as a 3, but then it was a 5, and then I gave it a 10. But then
as we were sitting here and I was listening to Doug give the recap, I am bringing my rating of the episode down just a smidge.
I gave a great recap.
You did.
It was a great recap.
As an individual episode, I would give this episode a 9.5.
Okay,
9.5?
For Louis, that's good.
That just means it was a 10.
That was a premature boo.
It was a 10.5, and you brought it down to a 9.5.
I fully expected you
Scale can go that high.
I fully thought you were gonna be like, this was like a 6, and I was just gonna be like, I need to get a flight to Boston real quick. I'll be back, guys.
For the record, this episode solidified for me why all of the first 4 episodes are as bad as they are, and overall the missed opportunity that Disney has had with this show. I think that they have failed miserably, and I think that they are going to ultimately see the repercussions of their ginormous mistake. And the ginormous mistake is, and I will go to my grave saying this, they should not have released the episodes episodically week to week. They should have given us all 6 episodes up front. And let me explain why and how it changes not just my take on the show, but a lot of fans. So it is not a secret that there are a lot of Star Wars fans out.
That's a comment that we got.
Yeah, so we're getting some interesting comments from YouTube.
Oh, nice.
Thank you.
Oh, no, good to know.
Even me.
Right. Whoa.
Even you.
Oh, damn.
Now, so what I'm curious about, I get the emojis.
It wasn't until I started.
You're right. I'm curious about that last emoji. What is that? It's like a
exhaustion.
We don't keep it. We don't have to keep it PG-13, right? Because my answer is not.
no. When have we ever
it looks like hot semen. That's what I'm getting.
Well, that's the splashy, but I'm talking about the one next to the splashy.
The on the right or the left of it?
My thought is just like it's hot in here. Ooh, hot.
Yeah. Doug, you had mentioned that it looks like heat exhaustion. Is that like the post-coital face? Is that what that is?
I'm the only one who's ever suffered heat exhaustion.
After or
Sex
during?
in a sauna? Ever done?
Sex in a sauna? Oh my god!
No, I would never.
We can move on.
All right, let's move on. Yeah, please continue, my friend. I apologize for that. That just literally as you were that came up.
Yeah. So it's not, what was I saying? It's not a secret that I am not the only person on the internet that has been up to this point disappointed with Kenobi, right? You can go on any Facebook group, any forum. It has an overwhelming response of disappointment from a lot of people, including influencers, which spreads throughout the internet, right? You can boo me all you want to, but I'm not the only person, okay?
I think you might be. I haven't seen any negative.
I think that 90% of that would have gone away if we had been able to experience this all in one shot. But because of it's because of the way that modern television is now and the way that the internet is now, who here was shocked and, taken out of their seat when we found out that Reva was a youngling in the temple? No one, because we knew it was going to happen, because we knew 2 or 3 days after episode 1 and 2 dropped, there was something that connected Reva back to that opening sequence. It's because people talking online, people chatting, because technology is the way that it is, we had time to process what that opening sequence meant. We had time to process, why is Reva so important to this story when you're not giving us any backstory about her? So when the moment happens, that shock and awe is kind of gone, and you're not like, oh man, I didn't see that coming. No, it's like, yeah, that was the logical thing. Let's move on.
So 9.5 is that your?
You're cutting me off. Okay, yep, 9.5.
Not cutting you off exactly, but kind of cutting you off. But,
all right.
So 9.5. We'll deep dive this. We'll deep dive this some more because this is.
I mean, it's Disney's fault. So.
So blaming the mouse.
Yep.
All right. Fair enough.
Good episode.
Vengeance, Aaron, your ratings, please.
10. It was a great episode. I mean, I'm going to let Aaron talk before I use my time to come after Louis. So, Aaron, you can.
There was some about this episode that I'm not quite sure how to identify it. Okay, I think I know what it was. There was elements of excellent storytelling, of which I'll kind of talk about a little bit later. In I love things jumping backward and forward at the same time, like to help with the backstory of like where a character's thinking, even though you can't necessarily show it in the moment. So there was a lot of cool stuff like that. Excellent storytelling. I thought there was some things felt like campy, forced in certain moments for me, which brought the score down a little bit. In addition to a moment I can't stop thinking about, and
oh my god,
Ewan McGregor completely breaking his accent. I think he says
there was one line that
he says "be careful" or something.
There's one line he said that sounded a little less his Kenobi accent.
And normally, let's just say it was "be careful." Let's say it was be careful. Normally he'd "be careful," right? He's really hits that R like he's from Pittsburgh, and so so for me it was more like an 8.5.
I stick with my 10. I think for me, and Doug, you hit one point in your wrap up that I particularly loved, and Louis, you're going to touch on it a little bit later, so I won't go too deep. But there were two. Ahsoka Tano is one of my favorite characters, and there's two moments in this episode that really tie into her, specifically from the end of Clone Wars in season 7 of the show. One is when Vader is looking out into hyperspace. There is a absolutely completely identical shot of Ahsoka doing the same thing, which I thought was just a really, really cool way to tie in very subtly Ahsoka into the live action going forward. And I also, Doug, you mentioned with her pulling the ship down was something that we see her try to do. A smaller ship of, and we see her doing it. And it's kind of cool because I kind of think she actually would have done it had she not been also trying to save Rex's life at the same time. So it's just kind of cool to see she's really powerful too, and kind of see how that matches up. The only thing I will say against what Louis said about it not being a surprise was I didn't care that it wasn't a surprise, because for me, that reveal wasn't about whether or not the girl in the beginning was Reva or not. It was, how did we get from that Reva to this Reva? And that was what was revealed. So I didn't care that I figured from the first episode, I'm like, yeah, it's pretty obviously her, but I want to know how we got there. And so for me, I liked having every week seeing a little bit of a tidbit, seeing what can I pick that's not just the evil Inquisitor, in which the little looks, the little things she says. So I really enjoyed that journey. And I'm curious, Louis, if you think that once everything drops, are you going to go back and watch it all in one sitting and see if you have a general, more favorable opinion of the show if you get to watch it all at once?
Probably not, because
I
think that they unless they give me just this epic conclusion this week that just blows me away to the point where it's like my favorite Star Wars thing ever, I will probably never watch it again, because they have killed for me the momentum that I had going into the show.
So Louis, let me ask you this, please. I will make this a request, from one friend to another. Sure. Once the series wraps, okay, I would say that we should do a wrap up show. So I would encourage you to watch it, binge it in one shot, in one sitting, and then we'll come back the following Monday. So I guess in 2 weeks from now, and then we'll get your reaction. Would you do that for me? I will give you a crisp $5 bill if you do that.
You can keep your money. I will do that, but I'm just letting you know now that I don't think that it will change my opinion, because it will just make me realize, they should have released all of this in one go instead of making us have a month to do it.
But we get it. We understand that. We know your stance on that. But what we're looking for are those deeper.
Yeah, I got you.
Understanding. You know what I mean?
Deeper appreciations for things.
And then maybe you would have noticed other things, because of course, we are deep diving. We're trying to find, those other connections, to other things within the Star Wars universe. So maybe you'll find, some more stuff. Maybe we'll all find some more stuff. Who knows? D to the UG, your rating, sir, please.
It feels like a cop-out. I think I've given every episode at least a 9.5. And that's fine, because I think they're all very good in their own right, but it didn't give me a whole lot of opportunity to show which one I liked more than the others. This is probably my favorite episode by far. So I want to give it a 10 if that's the cap, but I already gave other episodes a 10 that I also really like, so this is a 14. Honestly, this was it was above and beyond what I expected this episode to be. It was a brilliant homage to Empire Strikes Back, which I think, thanks to that online community that Louis referenced before, we all kind of have tracked the parallels through the first 6 episodes, the first 4 episodes, and now the 5th, tracking through the episodic movies. So I'm really interested to see what they do in the finale, if they're going to stick with that and have kind of a Return of the Jedi touch point. But this was very Fleeing from Hoth for me, and I thought it was a really nice homage, and I thought the storytelling was quite good. I don't mind the camp, because Star Wars is camp. Go back and watch the OT. Half the goddamn lines are camp. And that's okay, because that's what we fell in love with. So there's a part of me that's look, Star Wars is not good writing. Star Wars is great storytelling, but it has never been good writing, and that's okay. And this, I think, was a really good piece of storytelling. And Louis, I agree to some extent that I do think I think it's more just like the skills of the folks out in the universe right now. Like episodic television with a week-long wait time isn't a thing anymore. I mean, yeah, you have your major networks and your boomers are watching CSI, whatever podunk town they're in now. But there's I feel like the skills around the folks that are really willing to pour their heart and soul into a property like this, we're kind of all of that streaming generation. But the last great weekly television series, in my opinion, was Lost. One that like left me on the edge of my seat. I had no idea where it was going. I couldn't wait for the next episode. This doesn't do that. And I agree with you that it would have been probably better consumed. And maybe had it not been, and well, I think if you look at the intention, right? The intention was this was going to be a film, that then they said, well, let's just make it a miniseries and make it longer and we can show more and do more. Now you're looking at, a potential 5.5 hour or 5 hour movie. If they were to do it in a single binge, I think the reason things like Stranger Things get more positive reception now, it's also an original property and it's, very unique and different, which Star Wars was at one point in time. It's almost gotten so big that it's hard to be unique, right? How do you find the ingenuity to recreate Star Wars time and time and time again?
Right.
But Stranger Things does release in chunks. And, even with this kind of half a season thing, the season 4 has been received so positively. I haven't watched it yet. I actually saw a meme today that was like two of the gals from Stranger Things, Maya Hawke and I can't think of her name in the show. And
Bobby Brown.
No, the older sister of
Nancy.
Wolfhard, Nancy.
Nancy.
They were like looking like, what? And it's like Stranger Things 4. So when are you going to stop watching Kenobi again and watch me? And I'm in that boat. I keep rewatching Kenobi all throughout the week. And literally the day after next Wednesday, I will watch Stranger Things probably in like 2 days. But I need this, so I'm doing this. Anyways, whatever I said was the
14.
14. Thanks.
14.
Can I tag something on to what you're saying here, Doug, about the episodic versus like dump release? It's funny that you say that. I remember, a couple months ago, I think it was, I may be getting the show wrong, but I think it was Ozark dropped their finale right around the same time that Euphoria was going through their current season.
Yeah.
And people pointed out that Ozark was a huge show. It had a huge following. People were looking forward to this season. It all got dumped. Everyone consumed it, talked about it, and then stopped talking about it because we are goldfish and our brains move on to the next shiny thing very quickly. Yeah. Whereas Euphoria, because it was released weekly, it had a much longer time in the pop culture realm. People were talking about it longer. So even though with Stranger Things, they're kind of doing like their season dump pretty close together compared to how a lot of shows do it. But, having Kenobi would have been done. We would have been done with this. We'd have been talking about it for a week and not talked about it again. Them keeping it week by week is actually genius because it's keeping us here talking about it.
Well, it's another way that capitalism wins. And that's why they did what they did. If they dumped it in one weekend, then people sign up for the free trial of Disney Plus. They watch it all in a weekend. They don't feel like they've missed out on anything and they cancel their subscription. But it's brilliant what they did. I wish they would have built the series to fit that format better. I did mention Lost. Game of Thrones was a great weekly installment. The Wheel of Time very recently on Amazon was a really great weekly installment show. I didn't read the books, but they left me on the edge of my seat every time and I couldn't wait for the next episode. This doesn't really do that. But I would also argue that I don't think they were trying to hide that Reva was that Padawan. Like,
I was going to ask, is Kenobi designed to do that? Is it designed to be that, it's a limited run. So do we think that it's designed to, like you had mentioned Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones, it's like everyone talks about it. I'm like, what's going to happen next week? Who's going to have sex with their sister? Who's going to get their heads chopped off? What's going to happen? And, it was the water cooler show, and Kenobi is not necessarily that thing.
Well, and I think there's a question of generation too. Like, folks my age, we remember a couple of those shows: Lost, Game of Thrones,
Walking Dead,
The Walking Dead. But folks that are a little older than us and those that are particularly perturbed with, I think, the content of this show because it's not their Obi-Wan, because they were OT simps, and that's fine. Please be one. But my point is they're of a generation that is used to that format a little bit more. And I think I think they could have built this was built to be a movie.
Right.
But if we can watch it all in one sitting, I think it'd be good. That's why every week I go back and I watch at least 2 episodes,
Same.
prior. Or if I can, I try to watch the whole thing. And I'm usually falling asleep while I do it anyway. Not a reflection on the show, but a reflection on my general level of health and exhaustion.
So 14 then.
14.
Okay. Thank you for your rating, Doug. All good points. All good points all the way around. I think as a movie, would it have worked as a movie, or is it working better as a series? Obviously
more money as a series. So
right, and obviously we're going to be getting more information as a series versus, a film. At the most it would have been 2 hours. At the most. Historically, Star Wars films aren't generally even that long.
I think they would have stretched it 3 like they did with like a Revenge of the Sith. But
you think so?
I do, no matter what, it would have been shorter than the whatever we're going to
we're getting now, right?
4.5, 5.
Yeah. I'm glad it's as long as it is. I think honestly, every movie should be 5 hours to give me story and character development. That rather than cramming it in, I get to the end being like, okay. So if the trade-off is I have to wait a week and I get a full-fleshed great story that I can go back and consume and not say, I wish they had shown me more of this or more of that, that's a small price to pay, in my opinion.
Fair enough.
And I do think as a movie, you would have retooled the entire thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think a movie might have opened with the flashback we got 5 episodes in, Why wouldn't it? Because it would have set the entire tone for the next 5 hours. But
so what about a movie? What about launching Kenobi as a film and then following it up with a limited series? Do you think that would have made any difference at all? Would that have been completely unnecessary? Would it have helped, hindered?
The Clone Wars movie was trash.
Industry.
We're lucky the Clone Wars got a TV show after that really garbage introduction movie.
That's true.
That. Let's be honest, that was not good.
I mean, all right, yeah, all right, Daddy Louie. So let's go back on to you. Unfortunately,
he gave it a 9.5.
Give it a 9.5. I love you, Louie. You know that. I'm just messing with you.
He made us work for that 9.5, though.
He really did make us work for the 9.
It was a 10.5 until Doug started talking.
Well, that's fair.
All right, so Louie, you were going to talk to us about some space madness, and the physiology of the Grand Inquisitor. Is that correct?
Yeah. So first and foremost, like you mentioned, we're going to talk about space madness. So Ventus kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, but in this episode, we saw Vader on the bridge of his ship as they were flying through hyperspace, and he's looking out into the hyperspace. And that actually reminded me of a thing from Legends, where staring into hyperspace could cause what's known as hyper rapture, which is a form of madness acquired from staring into hyperspace for too long. Imperial ships would opaque the shield, basically, to shield people from having to look into the stuff. But Vader doesn't do that on his ships. It's a great detail that adds Vader's mental state into, how he currently is after his duel on Mustafar with Obi-Wan. So I thought that was pretty cool. Calling back to that hyperspace rapture is what they call it. And the other thing I wanted to mention, let me pull out my note here, is the Grand Inquisitor. Yeah. So fans may not realize or may not understand how somebody who gets stabbed right through the gut is still alive the way that the Grand Inquisitor is. And of course, we could say that the Bacta tanks now are the Star Wars cheat code, not just the Force, because everybody apparently you just throw them in a Bacta tank and they'll live forever. But the Grand Inquisitor, his race is called the Pawan. Is that how it's pronounced?
I
Pawan?
think so, because it's based off of the planet Utapau, so I think it's Pawan.
Powen, yeah. And they actually are known for having 2 stomachs. So it is most likely the reason that he survived. They don't need use of both stomachs, but they do have 2. So based on where Reva stabbed him, the logical explanation is that is how he survived, stabbed through one stomach and not through both. And that is how he lives.
So apparently everyone in the galaxy has 2 stomachs except for Qui-Gon Jinn then. Is that what we are?
Qui-Gon knew it was coming.
Right.
He checked out. He was just like, you know what? I'm going to let it take me. There's a lot of shit
getting stabbed in the stomach.
I like that. He was done. He wasn't going to get promoted at work. He knew that. he saw what was going to happen with this little kid with his pumpkin pie bowl haircut. Yeah, he checked out. He's like, let me chill out in the Force. Let me be a little Force ghost and hang out and, learn the mysteries of the universe. And I'm going to let y'all do what y'all are going to do. So, yeah. And,
Can I ask a question of Louis?
Yeah.
Cool. Hey, is there an example of what space rapture looks like, or like an example of a character who suffered from, or you get what I'm asking? Like, what did they become?
According to what I found online, was mostly just that that the warping blue hues, I guess what they're called, just causes some kind of psychological trigger when you stare at it for too long. I mean, I think I guess it's more like a I'm imagining it's more like a hypnosis, maybe. Right. Like a hyperspace hypnosis.
But we see people do it all the time. I mean, this is like, we see people just, especially on Imperial ships, they're just like, just chilling. It just seems like they're contemplating life and
I wonder if that's covered by the empirical healthcare. Like, are they just rolling through hyperspace pilots left and right?
I feel
if you ever notice, like, all the commanders of these big ships, they all have extreme rage. Like, look at Hux, right? Like Hux, General Hux, that little dude was fucking mental. That dude had some serious mental health problems, and
could have been from that
his whole career on the bridge of ships, so.
staring at the hyperspace lanes. And Doug, I don't feel like the Empire has a really good health plan.
Oh no, it's based off the American system for sure.
I agree. I actually saw a little short video on social media. I think it was today, actually, about when Darth Vader announced to the stormtroopers that they were going to get vision care.
Oh yeah,
the entire OT would not have happened because the stormtroopers would have just been sniping out the rebellion.
Yeah, but that makes sense because
stacking up bodies. Finally,
amazing.
I'm not saying democratic socialism is the answer. I'm just saying democratic socialism is the answer.
Now we've taken a political turn, haven't we? Interesting. Aaron, thank you, Louis. That was great. I did see a lot of people online talking about that too. Talking about how the Grand Inquisitor could take a gut shot, and Reva took 2 gut shots, and Qui-Gon took 1 and tapped out.
What was the name of the assassin from the Mandalorian series? Showed up in Boba Fett's personal.
Fennec. She got
a good gut shot.
We're not talking about Book of Boba Fett because we don't need.
No. Just the character. Who's not opening up their innards?
The Mandalorian just infects everything, doesn't it? Even now, we're talking about the Mandalorian. Just Pedro, I love you, but let's just give it a rest.
Back to tanks and mods. That's how you survive in Star Wars.
That's how you survive Star Wars nowadays.
That's it. So, Aaron, tell us about this whole flashback thing. I know people were very excited about the flashback. People were a little taken aback by the flashback due to perhaps a missed opportunity with de-aging Hayden a little bit. But I mean, I think, ultimately you can kind of look past that. But what was the significance? There was a lot going on in this flashback. I mean, the flashback was touching several different points. And what are those connections?
Well, I think the most important part about the flashback in general is it's a storytelling tool, and it's a storytelling tool that is used in a lot of like upper level like essays, or even like Grapes of Wrath even uses the story or like the method of calling back or like taking away from like the happening in the moment narrative, and then take you back to something that's more of a metaphor, something that is a microcosm of the story as a whole, so that you know what's happening in people's heads. You're prepared for what might happen. And so calling back to this shared memory, which I think through the jump cuts of when it's utilized, helps you understand what Obi-Wan might think next. Why is Obi-Wan saying that Anakin doesn't have patience to stand out for a siege? He's going to attack right now. Why does he know that? This microcosm of a shared memory. So for first and foremost, I think what that was just really good storytelling, a method of storytelling. So what was that? There it is, pre-Attack of the Clones, just a moment, a shared moment between a Jedi and his Padawan sparring at the Jedi Temple. Anakin is there just waiting, antsy, right? And then he's looking out over the skyline of Coruscant. And what is the major thing that he's looking at in the background? The apartment building of Padme. How cool is that? Okay, so that's where we know. His attention is kind of focused on Padme, pulled back to Jedi business. And so from their sparring match, we learn the chess match of basically the professional level of how well Obi-Wan and Anakin know each other. Obi-Wan knows that Anakin doesn't have patience. He's all about the aggression. Obi-Wan even says a Jedi's role is to defend life, not take it through, really not attack it.
Right.
Anakin then responds with, but no battle was ever won through mercy. So you can see a microcosm of like how these characters think. And so when we jump back to the moments, like the narrative moments, we're prepared for, I think we know the characters that much deeper. It's also interesting that it's interspersed throughout in key moments to how we might predict and how we are surprised by the ways in which each character either doesn't learn their lesson or does learn their lesson or is consistent with the character that they show. Obi-Wan telling Anakin, trying to teach Anakin that you don't have to win through force. There is a passive way to win. And that's how he dupes Anakin right there at the end. Anakin still trying to prove himself by tearing and ripping things apart. Obi-Wan sneaks out the back road. So I think it's learning how characters might predict each other. It's that chess match. I think the fun thing at the end, though, is throughout the entire time, Anakin's just not learning the lesson. He's just always attacking, never really getting the upper hand. But at the end, he does kind of learn his lesson. And that's how he gets the upper hand on Reva. And in their fight, he doesn't use a weapon. So he learns Obi's lesson that you don't have to win a fight with a weapon, basically. You know, he's just judo forcing all this and that.
Smacking her. You know what? You're not even good enough for me to use my lightsaber. I'm just going to smack you down with the Force.
It's both ego and learning the lesson from Obi, in my opinion. And then what is the move where that Anakin or Darth Vader wins by? It's the same move of how Obi stole the lightsaber off of Anakin in their sparring match. Mm-hmm. He does the same thing to Reva. Oh God, this move is so cool. Like I always want to see spinning lightsabers used with the Force. I always think that would be such a good way. Like, why do I always have to fight so close to you with a lightsaber? Why don't I just like Force move it? Well, he throws a lightsaber at her. She deflects it. And while she's kind of like dealing with that, he's just like, yoink, takes her, Force pulls the lightsaber, and that's the end of the match. Just like how Obi, in a way, defeated Anakin. So in that way, he learns his lesson.
I love it. And it was really interesting how we're seeing this, like you, Aaron, like you had said, this shared memory, but we're seeing Obi-Wan and Vader, you know, remembering this thing from their own points of view, you know, and of course that was always, you know, that was the big thing in, you know, Return of the Jedi, you know, Obi-Wan said it, it's, what I said was true from a certain point of view, and so, seeing these two friends, now enemies, reliving that same memory, but one from that place of anger and hate, and then one from that place of wisdom.
And even in that wisdom that they both have, be it hate, be it peace, they're both like working off that same shared memory to try to get the one up on each other. Darth Vader predicting how Obi might sacrifice himself through mercy, and then
it was just this intimate knowledge that they had of each other.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we see Vader does learn, but over the course of the films, we see just how clouded his judgment is, because of the hatred, because the dark side gives you strength, but it doesn't always give you clarity. And that's the thing that we see time and time again. And speaking of the wisdom of Vader,
Yes.
Tell us about it, because Vader is not the sharpest saber in the shed. He's never been super tactical. In the animated series, we do get to see this, but he's always been more about power than anything else. He's not always been that great tactician. He's just, in the micro series, we see him, just attacking. And there's that scene where Obi-Wan cautioned, he said, let's wait. It's raining. And Anakin just takes off and just does what he does. So we see him, he is that hammer, whereas Obi-Wan is the scalpel. You know what I mean? But Vader is not an idiot at all.
And we've obviously made a lot of jokes tonight about like, oh yeah, I guess Reva can survive a lightsaber, but it's like, no, but really, if Anakin / Vader wants you dead, you're gonna die, especially in a lightsaber duel 1-on-1. I mean, from long before he was a Jedi Knight, when he was still a Padawan, he was far stronger in dueling than a lot of people far older than him. So if he wanted Reva dead, she would be. So the fact that she survived, like, it just logically makes sense that, like, well, he didn't want her dead, and one thing, you saying that he's not a tactician, he definitely focuses more on his emotions than like planning, but he was still General Skywalker at one point. He was still having to come up with plans. He was leading battles and troops. So he's not someone who just always runs in blindly. He definitely would take more risks, but he has plenty of strategy in him. And for the past 10 years, he's been apprenticing to Darth Sidious, to the Emperor, the guy who came up with the entire plan,
the master plan,
20 years before it came into play with everything. So he's not a complete idiot. So it's kind of like, okay, then why would he want to leave Reva alive? We know that he's known for, assuming several episodes now, that she killed the Grand Inquisitor, and he's kind of been just letting her do what she does. You know what I mean? Like, he's kind of just let's see what happens. He easily could have killed her immediately when the Grand Inquisitor was brought back to him, needed to recover. He could have just said, Reva betrayed me, and that would have been it. But he kept her around. He used her anger. They even say it in this episode. Your anger was beneficial to us, and now it's just annoying. So they said, we're going to use you as long as you kind of make sense for us to use. And so he must know that she wasn't on his side entirely, or she had his own agenda. He goes into that cave she says, oh yeah, I left Kenobi in here for you. He goes in there. Clearly Kenobi's not there. They escape. It's very clear at that moment that, okay, they must have somehow, the two of them partnered on this moment. He may not know exactly when that partnership started, but he knows that something happened here. So when she comes up behind him and fails to assassinate him, what does he say? It was wise of Kenobi to use you. Immediately plants the seed in her that Obi-Wan Kenobi basically led her astray in order to facilitate his own escape. And we know, based on her conversation with Kenobi prior, she in part blames him for what Anakin did at that night at the Jedi Temple during Order 66. She says, where were you? Why didn't you stop your Padawan? So we already know she has resentment for Kenobi there. Not as much as she's held for Anakin, but it is there. So then after laying that seed of, hey, this is Obi-Wan's fault right now. He lied to you. He abandoned you. What does he do? He toys with her. He embarrasses her. He doesn't even give her the dignity of pulling out his lightsaber to defend himself against her. He then takes her weapon from her, snaps it in half, gives half of it back, only to take it back and have her in the same position that he killed Count Dooku.
Yeah.
Another
for it. I thought he was going to go for it.
Yeah, I did too.
That entire thing, it makes no sense. He could have force choked her. He could have killed her immediately, but no. He tears her down utterly. She is defeated. He shows her just how weak she always was, how this entire thing that she has been laying out and planning for 10 years, how he throws that all in her face, then brings out the Grand Inquisitor, says, you weren't even as smart as you thought you were. You were never ahead of me during this. And then stabs her in the stomach. Now, if Anakin Skywalker, Vader wants you dead, you're dead.
We could have chopped her head off.
In that moment, I do not believe that he stabbed her to kill her. I think that was just a final blow, a callback to that same thing that happened to her as a kid. So what happens now? Now, Anakin, who we know is enjoying the fear and the chase and suffering of Obi-Wan, has now basically taken all of that anger that Reva had strictly for Anakin and pushed it all towards Obi-Wan. So now Obi-Wan has another person who believes that Obi-Wan failed them. Obi-Wan is the reason that I am. Obi-Wan made me this way in the galaxy. What a terrible thing to put on Obi-Wan's conscience once again.
Right. Let me ask you this.
Fucking with him.
Because I mean, clearly Anakin is, Vader is clearly toying. He is a master manipulator. Mm-hmm. Again, I don't think that he's the greatest military tactician. Again, no slouch, but when you talk about him spending the last 10 years learning from Sidious, he's learning the art of manipulation. Mm-hmm. No one does it better than Papa Palpatine. Nobody. Yeah. So one thing I want to ask you, do you think, and this is for the group, this is for everybody, do you think in episode 4, when he had Reva and he was choking her out, mm-hmm. right? He had her in front of the other Inquisitors. In that moment, did he have any intentions on killing her, or did he already know what was happening and he did that as a show of force to the other Inquisitors and the other Imperial subordinates that were around him? So in that moment, did he already know? You know what I mean? Like, was that just theater for him?
He knew something was up because he knew that she tried to kill the Grand Inquisitor. He knew that she had her own agenda. I think that, he's still Darth freaking Vader. He can't just let people go unpunished. So he definitely had to do that show of force. But I think there was still part of him that wanted to see what she did next. Because simply saying, well, I tracked them, he could have been like, hand over your tracker. You know what I mean? There was no reason for him to do so. He wanted to see what happened. And we also see a different Vader than we kind of see. Like last time we see Anakin on Mustafar, it's all brute force, it's all passion, it's all anger. You would expect that when he's in the town that back in episode, I think 3, he's in the town that he knows Obi-Wan is in. You're expecting someone to be walking through the streets like, Obi-Wan, come out and face me. He silently and methodically kills people one by one, knowing how much it would torment him. So it is still using anger and passion, but in a different way. And I think that's what we're seeing. So
is one final question, then we're gonna throw it over to Doug. Do we feel that, does Vader have even the slightest bit of sympathy for Reva, or is she 100% just a tool for his revenge? Is there any sympathy at all?
I think that Anakin is so far buried and Reva's not the person to bring him out. We know that we see, I think effectively only 2 people breach the wall of Vader to get to Anakin, and it is Padme in episode 3, and it is briefly Ahsoka in Star Wars Rebels. They are the only people who can kind of get past that wall.
Well,
Reva
Luke
is no one to him.
does eventually. We do see Luke, obviously.
Yeah.
He breaks the wall down eventually.
Right.
Yeah. But you're absolutely right.
Yeah, no one else can. I don't think he has pity for her because she has meant nothing to him. She meant nothing to him as a Padawan. She means nothing to him as an Inquisitor.
Yeah. Good point. Thank you. All right, Doug. So we may have missed some things written on the walls. You were deep diving on some of the Arabesh, right? Some of the
I would love to say that I
writing
can translate Arabesh myself, but I've been relying heavily on the internet.
That's all right.
But we did see some cool things. Obi-Wan mentions in part 3, Quinlan Voss. Everybody got all up in arms. We're really hoping to see him. Still holding out hope that we're gonna get him in the finale, but I don't think it's probably gonna happen.
I'm sorry. One quick question from the viewers. Biggest question. This is coming from Tony. My biggest question coming out of this episode is: did removing the restraining bolt from Lola also remove the tracker, and why is it so easy to remove? Any thoughts on that? Anyone?
My guess is because it's a movie, and to some extent, you have to suspend
Yeah.
our disbelief.
Well, real quick, the restraining bolts that was on R2-D2 when Luke pulled off, like when it was intercepting that message, it left an indent on R2-D2, and so I was kind of thinking there must be really on there, And so I was a little also surprised that she was able to oh yeah.
But it was hasty. It was, to be fair, it was kind of like a hasty application of the restraining bolt. She didn't have a whole lot of time to do it.
Yeah, maybe different models of restraining bolts.
Yeah, it's a small droid. You don't want to put something the size of like a Nokia cell phone on it. It's supposed to be
like
It's supposed to be hidden. It's supposed to be hidden. So
right,
that's true.
So I think maybe Doug, you nailed it.
A little USB downloaded the bad guy program, and then. Okay.
All right, Doug.
Anyways,
talk about this hidden Arabesh stuff that you found.
Yeah, so when we get to Jabim and we see some more markings on the cave walls or whatever that tapestry kind of thing is, because they cut pieces out of it. So I have no idea what this material is. But anyways, there are not only some really fun phrases that I'm not going to talk about. I am going to talk about some of the characters that are now confirmed canon, that were either previously legends or maybe just that we now know for sure have survived or to some extent. I'm going to start with a couple boring ones that I don't particularly care about, but I think people in the fandom might. Corwin Shelvey was a human Jedi. He was actually introduced in an RPG from 1993. I think it was like a tabletop thing called Galaxy Guide 9. But like in terms of like relevance to the Star Wars galaxy outside of his own exploits, he was a Padawan learner of Darren Arcanian, who was a Jedi Master on the Council, I think during the Clone Wars, but I think he might not have been in Revenge of the Sith, which was kind of bizarre. But he's what are they, the Soltuna or whatever, like the kind of wonky looking, almost fish head guys. So Corwin Shelvey is canonized. His Wikipedia page has not been updated. It still says Legends. But this now, it's a decision that Disney made that, basically the movies, the Clone Wars, and any of the written materials that kind of go along with the movies are canon and everything else is Legends. So it's kind of neat. And maybe a little, because Darren Arcanian is also in Legends survived Order 66. So maybe that means Darren Arcanian's out there as well, which is kind of neat. We also saw the name Tiberius. We did not see the last name, but the only Tiberius from Legends was introduced in the MMORPG, like Star Wars Galaxies in the early aughts, like 2004, which would have been like prime time for me gaming, and I did not play it, so I don't know.
On a side note, the greatest MMORPG of all time, bar none. That is a hill that I will die on. That hill, I will die on that hill. It was, even if you're a casual Star Wars fan, that is the greatest Star Wars video game of all time.
I'm gonna have to see if there's like a private server.
There is an emulator. It's SWG EMU. Obviously the graphics are dated, but we can do an entire show of just me just talking about Star Wars Galaxies because it is such a good game. It was just so good for every level of Star Wars fan. It is just, I went to a wedding in that game. I was almost divorced because of that game. I was almost fired because of that game. I got to walk around in Obi-Wan Kenobi's house in that game. It was just,
I'm looking it up now. And I am very angry this doesn't exist. Like, I'm only like 2 seconds into the Wikipedia page, and I'm already willing to like trade World of Warcraft for this.
I want to see a bot then. I heard they're hairy.
Yeah,
Am I wrong?
It was the levels in this game. Like if there's a Wookiee standing next to you and you haven't gone to a trainer to learn Shishiruk, whenever someone types in what they're saying, it's just it's just gibberish. Like you literally would not know what other species are saying unless you find a trainer to learn their language. It's just to become there were 32 professions. To become a Jedi, you had to find a holocron, which was incredibly rare. And then once you find the holocron, you have to do some stuff. Some people would have to master all 32 professions before they were even able to unlock the holocron. It took years for people to become a Jedi. Then once you just become a Jedi, then there's the trials. Then you have to go from Padawan to Knight to Master. And this is all taking place during this Galactic Civil War. So you cannot, if you become a Jedi and if you pull your lightsaber out in any public location, if any NPC sees you, you're instantly flagged for PvP. Just like that, instantly. And it will stay that way for 24 real life hours, or until a bounty hunter comes after you. And if a bounty hunter comes after you, there is a death penalty, a severe death penalty. You have to have millions of XP to go from one level, from one ranking to the next. If you're at 999,999 XP and you get killed by a bounty hunter, that drops down to 0. So you just literally could have lost months of grinding and leveling up because you were being attacked by a Rancor on Dathomir and you whipped out your lightsaber to whoop its ass and some NPC droid saw you and then you get flagged. You end up on the bounty hunter boards, which any player character can visit. I was a bounty hunter in the game. I would go to the board and I would see, oh shit, Jedi Master Doug, holy shit, he's on here for 1 million credits. Bet that's your ass. And that's just one small part.
So Lucas Games, we need a port for the Nintendo Switch or the Xbox Series.
If they were to release that game,
you see my face right now? That sounds amazing.
That's tip of the iceberg. There's so much more. So many planets to explore. Just you start out on Tatooine in Mos Eisley. And you're given a droid. You're given a helper droid. That's it. Welcome to Star Wars Galaxies. Good luck. And you can wander around and you can visit all of these iconic locations all throughout the galaxy. Like I said, you see the Krayt Dragon skeleton that we saw, C-3PO and R2-D2. We find their pod. It's just, Doug, I'm sorry.
This is the time that Disney should bring this back with them having so many TV shows and showing us, some parts of the galaxy, but mostly Tatooine. Like, this is the perfect time for them to just.
They could. And you know what? World of Warcraft killed it. World of Warcraft killed it because not everybody, but a huge part of the Star Wars Galaxy population went to World of Warcraft because it came out after Galaxies came out. So I just
read that they revamped the game after like a couple years, and a lot of people didn't like the revamping. So I'm wondering if that caused a lot of people to kind of roll out.
So people went to just check out World of Warcraft. They weren't necessarily abandoning Galaxies, but Sony Online Entertainment saw this exodus and they were like, oh shit, we need to be more like World of Warcraft. It's like, motherfucker, we don't want you to be like World of Warcraft. We want you to be like Star Wars Galaxies. People are dabbling in World of Warcraft. They're going to come back. So they did this whole thing. It was the NGE, the new game experience or whatever. they condensed all 32 professions down into 16, making one of them Jedi. So you could start the game as a Jedi profession. Obviously, the legacy Jedi who had to work for like a year plus to become a Jedi, they're like, wait, what? You mean what? You can just start. It just took away so many. Like, you used to, when you fought, you would get battle fatigue. The only way to get rid of battle fatigue was to go to a cantina and watch a player character either dance, sing, or play an instrument. So there were non-combat roles in the game. You could be an architect, you could be a shipwright, you could be a tailor, you could be there was a medic and entertainers. So all of these different, if you wanted to get healed up, you could buy some little buffs and things, but to get fully healed, you had to go to the medical center and see an actual player who was a medic. I had to sit down and listen to you, singing or dancing or playing an instrument, and then I would tip you out, and then you would give me a buff, and then I would go on about my business. But it made you have value in the game. All 32 professions had value and balance, and it was
That's really cool.
That kind of reminds me a little bit of what's that? Sword Art Online, where where everyone had their own profession. Like, people were like, "I'm going to be a warrior." This guy's like, "I'm going to just open a bar and just do."
And that was Galaxies. People, there were chefs. People would craft food that you would need, because when you're out in the desert, you had to consume food to stay alive. When the game first came out, there were no speeders yet. So if I wanted to go from like Mos Eisley to Mos Espa, I'm walking, or I have to pay to take a shuttle. But I couldn't even afford to take, I had like 20 credits to my name. You can't afford to take a shuttle. So that means I'm walking through Tuscan infested Dune Sea. And
I've decided my character in this game, which doesn't exist anymore, is I'm going to be a Twi'lek bounty hunter who pretends to be a stripper and just says, sometimes someone's going to come into my bar needing to be healed. And then I see them, bam, done.
And you can totally do that. The beautiful thing about the bounty hunter profession is that you got first strike every time. So on the radar, you as a Jedi, or whoever my target was, is a red dot. But on their radar, I just look like any other like NPC or player character. So I could walk up to the cantina while you're getting your battle fatigue all, fixed up. And usually when you're in that, when I, you're chit-chatting with someone, you're in the cantina chilling and you're talking to somebody. So I see you in the cantina, I'm going to walk up behind you, blah, blah, blah. And I get first strike. Now, if I miss or I screw up, now you have an opportunity to defend yourself. But for me, I was like the trap master. I would throw traps, and I did not do my bounties. I'm like, well, what are you?
Pretend to be an NPC. I'd be like walking into walls, like no one will ever know.
Bonuses. There were racial bonuses. So Wookiees had increased strength. Twi'leks had increased charisma to help them do different things. So it was just. Like, I'm sorry. Please continue with what you're saying. Guys, we've gone so over.
So there's that was interesting, and I'd like to learn more about that. And I also I want to talk with V about maybe diving into Sword Art Online on some upcoming projects, because
it's a good game.
So Sword Art Online is real good.
It is a good game. It's a good anime too. It's a really good anime.
Yes, I'm referring to the anime specifically. So, anyways, Tiberius Anderlock from Star Wars Galaxies was an NPC.
Don't say it. Don't say Star Wars Galaxies.
So that he is now canonized as a Star Wars character, which is neat. One that was not as publicly easy to find, but so I'm hoping this was a real one, was Ekria, who was a Barolian Jedi Padawan. Interestingly enough, Isla Sakura's Jedi Padawan during the Clone Wars and ended up being a commander. She was not in the Clone Wars series, however. So now she's canonized. And I just love it because it's another tie to Quinlan Voss with the Quinlan Voss tree, right? Because Isla was a Quinlan Voss Padawan. So I think that there's some I think if they're going out of their way to kind of help us track the dots, and maybe they're not. Maybe they're just fucking with us all, and that's fine too. Because I don't have a soul anymore. And then Raganda is Marin, is another name that we do see. Ragonda Ismarin, so that we've canonized her. She's actually a Jedi initiate from Alderaan. So like I do think they're being a little choosy about what they're doing here. Obviously, this story is not Alderaan centric, but having Leia be such a big part of it, and Bail, and knowing what happens to Alderaan in the OT, there's some really neat tie-ins there. The other one thing, and this is again not confirmed, kind of like Ekria, was the hilts of the lightsabers that we see.
Yes.
Someone pointed out that one of them was very similar to Katuni's hilt, and Katuni was a Jedi Padawan that we see in the Clone Wars with Ahsoka. This team, and one of them, Gunji, who was a Wookiee Padawan, has been confirmed to have survived Order 66 because he's in the preview for Bad Batch season 2.
Yep.
So Katuni must have made it out, but we don't know maybe where she is now, because I got to assume if she was still with us, she'd probably have her lightsaber. But again, that's not super confirmed that is an Easter egg, but it was one of those ones that caught someone's eye and is starting to gain some steam. So
fun fact about Katuni, by the way, in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, there is a ride, the Smuggler's Run ride, where Hondo Tanaka actually takes you through, and you're doing a run for him. You're flying the Millennium Falcon while he flies his ship, the Katuni. So you know that in Smugglers in Galaxy's Edge, Hondo Tanaka, he names his ship Katuni. They don't say at what point. They don't really give you any like contextual clues. But
he's a part of that episode arc too, and
right.
they form like a little bond. And he's like, "You should come with me," and she's like, "I'm a Jedi."
Yeah, I'm wondering though, because the Galaxy's Edge is themed with the sequel series. I'm wondering if that makes Hondo's existence during the sequel time canon.
But did he name his ship after her?
Yeah,
like as a memorial?
We don't know.
I mean, but if we're potentially seeing her saber, and then now with that, I had no idea that was the name of his ship. Katuni,
we'll remember, is the Padawan with the gooper blooper tentacles from Super Mario Sunshine.
Gooper.
That is the name. I had to look it up, but that is the name of the squid thing in Mario Sunshine. Go.
All right.
Continue.
Doug, I'm okay.
No, that's it. That's actually all I had. I just thought there were some really neat little tie-ins. We've canonized some characters that like I didn't know a whole lot about, so I'm excited to learn, and maybe we'll get to see them. Maybe they pop up in a Mando season 3, or I don't know. Like there's a million properties coming out in the next couple of years, and we're just opening so many doors to make this universe so much more rich than it has been to this point. And what's crazy is like the whole point of the Star Wars universe is just how vast and rich it has been. And I feel like, there's a line I recite from a musical all the time. The thing about icebergs is like, I still think we're only seeing 20 or 30% of this. There's so much more out there beyond, like, I think I've made the joke before, the 1%ers of the Jedi and the Sith. Like, what's going on in the rest of the galaxy? There's so much.
Yeah.
Well, didn't Watiti come out and say, I think he's working on a new series that's going to be all brand new characters. It's not going to deal with any of those things.
Excited. You know what?
She's here. Like,
come into our house.
Out of nowhere.
One.
Nowhere. He said, Obj1. Obj1 is a bitch.
Obj1.
I'm glad he wasn't here when Louis was talking his shit, because you know who would have been hot?
He would have agreed the hell out of me. He would have agreed with
Mr. Deacon would have agreed with everything. Thank you, Mr. Deacon, for popping in. Oh man. Well, you know what, Doug, since now he's correcting himself there, Obi. So, Doug, since we got you up there, we're gonna do predictions for next week. What do you think's gonna happen? We've got this big hour and a half? Is it going to be?
There's some like confusion. I guess
confirmed.
there's a Q&A afterwards too, so it may only be 60 minutes. Whatever. It's going to be long, and it's going to be enjoyable. I think we're definitely going to see Qui-Gon, Force Ghost. I think even if it's the last 3 minutes and it's just setting up what Obi-Wan's going to be doing for the next 10 years where he learns about the immortality through the Force. I think that's definitely, it has to happen. He is canonically Force ghosting.
Right.
So I think he's been calling out to him. I definitely think we're getting that. It may even be a post-credit. Like, I don't care. It's going to happen. I think we're going to see Vader and Obi-Wan go at it one more time. I think we'll get Leia comfortably to safety and away from Vader. Maybe Reva goes to Tatooine alone. Maybe she brings Vader. I'm not sure. OBG was a bitch. We're gonna say that.
Oh my god.
That's great.
That's also a part of my prediction is Odell Beckham Jr.
He becomes canon in the Star
He becomes canon as a bitch.
All right. No.
But anyways, yeah, I think we're getting Qui-Gon. I think we're getting a fight. I think we're gonna be back on Tatooine. Maybe we find out that Anakin hates sand even more because it gets stuck in his respirator.
Nice.
Daddy Louie. Predictions next week. What's going to happen?
I'm not 100% convinced that we get Qui-Gon as a Force ghost. I think we will, at a minimum, hear his voice because it's easy for them to do a voice imitation as opposed to full-on showing Liam Neeson. I'm not saying it's completely out of the question because Star Wars does like to throw us, a last-minute thing that no one was expecting and it blowing everybody away.
For the record, Louis, Qui-Gon is in, because I know you haven't watched it, Qui-Gon is in Clone Wars. He interacts with Yoda as a voice, but it is voiced by Liam Neeson. So I would expect
that I did not know.
Yes.
I did not know it was actually voiced by Liam Neeson.
I believe, is when
Maybe if you watched the Clone Wars, you would have.
Well, maybe if it didn't suck, then I would watch it.
Oh, shut up. OBJ was a bitch. Nah, go put him back. I want that.
I'm just messing. Go ahead, Daddy Louie.
Yeah, we'll get Qui-Gon in some form or fashion. We'll see a lightsaber fight. I'm hoping that the lightsaber fight does not happen on Tatooine, but all signs point there. So yeah, I just want a good episode.
All right. V&A.
I'm gonna quickly support Louis. At a minimum, we get Qui-Gon.
Oh, okay.
Because
Ben just was like, wait a minute. No, support that Louis guy.
Because one thing that I've kind of noticed about how Obi-Wan has been regaining his touch with the Force I think the last seconds of episode 5 are kind of the first time he's really living in the present. Everything else, he's still haunted by the past. He's still unable to like pull a nut and washer across a table,
Right.
And you definitely see in increments his growth. So now that he is very much well attuned to the present, even showing some of like his courage of the past, being a general and like talking to everybody, that I'm kind of going off my point. But you've seen him gain his confidence, regain his connection to the Force, and then his like sensing the disruption of what's about to happen. That's him living in the presence. So I don't necessarily think he's going to have that massive breakthrough to like being present with Qui-Gon. It would be my guess. So I support Louis at minimum. Like he may start to get more future, and voice of Qui-Gon will set us up maybe for season 2. Otherwise, I don't have too much else to add. Just an appreciation of Obi's journey.
I actually surprisingly also agree with Louis that we will just hear a voice of Liam Neeson. I know it's bound to happen at some point. No, but I think we're only going to hear a voice. I have this vision in my head that it's like the last scene of the show, and we see Obi-Wan like sitting down to meditate again, and him calling out to Qui-Gon, and we hear Qui-Gon calling back. The 2 reasons why I think it'll be that way is if that is the end of the Kenobi show for good, that's kind of enough for us to know that what happens between, for the next 8 years is he works with Qui-Gon. He's made that connection. If, the Disney money wheel starts kicking and says, this opens us up to a movie or a couple more episodes, a couple, years from now, to see what Obi-Wan is like having reconnected with the Force, what role he plays with the rebellion, that kind of stuff. They can technically do that if they wanted to. I hope they don't. I hope they just end it, because I think it's a great story. End it on, once and for all, rather than dragging it out. I also think that we are going to, for sure, somehow have Vader and Reva and Obi-Wan on Tatooine. And I think we are going to maybe see something happen between Obi-Wan and Reva, where I don't know how it'll end, but I think we're going to see Obi-Wan try and understand that type of pain and that type of anger and hurt, because I don't think we haven't really seen him do that yet when it comes to Anakin. We didn't see him really try to understand the pain that Anakin was going through on Mustafar. So It'd be kind of cool if we see him try to be for Reva what he was not for Anakin. I think that would be a really cool storyline. Whether it works out or not, I don't know. Reva doesn't have plot armor. It's kind of interesting. But in her not having plot armor, there's plenty of ways that they could still keep her around and kind of have her doing her own side gigs, that don't really intersect with the main storyline. So we'll see.
So are we going to see anything with Luke? Because right now Luke is just chilling on Tatooine, pretending to be a speeder pilot, pretending to be, in the Boonta Eve pod race. He is just chilling, running around, not a care in the world. Clearly, he's been left in the sun way too long, because he doesn't just seem quite right at this point.
Clearly Star Wars should have been more about Leia. I think that's what we've all kind of learned.
So are we getting? And that's my question. Is the original trilogy is Luke? I mean, really. I mean, that is the story of Luke Skywalker. Right. So do we need to see anything about Luke right now, or is it good?
I want to see him. I want specifically the next episode to open up and we see Luke playing with some of his little stupid friends, and they're at the Tashi station. I want to see Luke at Tashi station so that when he's 19 years old, being like, but I want to go to Tashi station. Like, I want us to have seen what he was whining about.
You can waste time. And Brent just brought up a good episode. He said his innocence is key. And I think that is a really, really good point. I think that is a very, very good point. Because Luke he's just that innocent farm boy. He dreams of things going on. I think he probably feels the tug of the Force here and there, but he has no idea what it is or what to do with it. And that's because of Obi-Wan. Obviously, Obi-Wan, probably either maintained enough of a distance or kept the Force from creeping in on Luke in various ways. But that's a really good point, is that innocence. And I think that innocence maybe was also a factor for keeping him hidden, because had he grown, done it, or had any like adventures, maybe that would have alerted the Inquisitors or Vader himself.
I want to make a bold prediction.
Uh-oh.
Because I want Reva to be more important than because I like the idea of her character, and I'm fascinated by her character in general. So I want to play her up. Yeah. I think Reva is going to have a moment where she could regain glory, honor, and in either the Empire, because she figures out that Luke has a tie to Anakin, but she at the Obi will resurrect the good in her, and she will block that information at the last second. She will be the reason that Darth Vader does not know about his son.
I think that's a great idea. I like that a lot.
Really?
I was going to say,
it definitely makes her a lot more important.
Yeah.
I need her to be important.
I think that would be really, really a very interesting thing, that she maybe dies. I hope she doesn't, because I really like her, but like her dying to prevent another child murder.
All right. She sacrifices herself to save the twins, basically.
Yoda's the second sister.
Yeah. All right, so that is going to do it for us. We went a little bit over time today. VA, what do you guys have going on? Where can people find you?
We are preparing for our next convention, which is Fan Expo Chicago. I currently have my Ahsoka Tano armor drying with its first round of Plastidip. I'm working also on a Revo cosplay. And Aaron, you're finishing up which character?
Kanan Jarrus. I was working on the blaster all weekend.
Nice. And where can people follow your progress?
They can follow us on Instagram on Mixed Madness Cosplay. And when I figure out how to link them and remember my password, it'll also be on Mixed Madness's Facebook.
All right. Sounds good. And Daddy Louie, what's going on with you? Where can they find you? You got a bunch of stuff going on too. What's happening?
Oh, I'm so busy right now. This week, Monday and Tuesday, I'm twitch.tv/playrenegade painting some prizes that they're going to give away at Gen Con, so check those out. And then every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, I am on It's So Tiny on the Circle of Nerds twitch.tv/Circle of Nerds.
Beautiful. Thank you, sir. And Doug, what have you got going on? Brent right here said that a coworker said that you were amazing and is recommending School of Rock for everyone.
One more weekend.
Yeah, one more weekend. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 4 shows, 4 opportunities. canepark.com. I'm a little from Cleveland. I don't know if you could tell. Beautiful setting, beautiful outdoor facility. And yeah, I don't know. We're doing School of Rock. I'm playing a little guitar and singing a little songs and sweating an awful lot. But I sweat so you don't have to, or something like that.
Yeah.
So please, yeah, come out and check it out. It's been a lot of fun. The kids are incredible. They all play. The 4 band members play live every night, and the other kids are just so much energy and fun. Great sound and pit. Super stellar cast.
Yeah. The level of talent is astronomical. I mean, it really is. There's no other word for it. These kids are next level. It's surprising. It feels like they've been performing for 20 plus years, and I don't think any of them are over the age of 12, 13 maybe.
I think the oldest kid is 14.
Okay.
But I mean, come on, man. I started doing theater when I was 14. And maybe I was 15. I was 15, and I couldn't do what they're doing. Although I will say, after 20 years of performing, my knees are not what they used to be.
I was playing with G.I. Joe action figures in a basement when I was 14. So this is very impressive. Very impressive. So thank you, everyone, for popping in and jumping into the garbage chute with us this week. Everyone that commented, all of you folks online on Facebook and YouTube, thank you all so much for your questions and your comments, except for Mr. Deacon, because that was
that was excellent.
That was excellent. That was a wonderful addition.
Don't encourage his behavior. No, we love you, Mr. Deacon. So check out the Mr. Deacon experience. It's out there. Just look it up. It's if you're a sports nerd, the Mr. Deacon experience is definitely for you. So check that out. And of course, if you want to check out more of what we do, you can find us all over the interwebs. Just look for Circle of Nerds on whatever your favorite platform is, and we are there. Whether you're going to listen to us on, your wherever you listen to podcasts, or you want to watch us on YouTube, or check out our content on social media, we are there doing some things. And if you want to help support us and keep things commercial free and, help us keep the lights on, all you have to do is head on over to patreon.com/Circle of Nerds. But for a mere pittance, we're going to give you a little bit of extra content as our way of saying thank you for helping to support us however you can. So we appreciate you for doing that. And to all of our Patroni out there who are still supporting us, thank you guys so much for everything that you do. We really appreciate you. Anybody have anything else on the way out? Nope. All right, then that's going to do it for us. That is another episode of Into the Garbage Chute. Down the hatch, I guess. I don't know. I'm trying to do things and talk at the same time. It never works. Multitasking is not my thing. So we will see you next week for the season finale of Obi-Wan Kenobi. We're going to have a lot to talk about. We went a little bit over this week. I'm sure we're going to go over again next week. So make sure you tune in every Monday night right here on either Facebook or YouTube. and have a great week. And as always, if no one does anything nice for you, do something nice to yourself, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.